thoughts. So you can send them via WhatsApp 0809 4440981. You can also tweet at Smooth981. And don't forget that we are streaming live on our YouTube channel. So you can catch that live stream on YouTube. It's Smooth981.
To help us make a meaning of all of the headlines this morning, we've got joining us Lakunle Yusuf. Good morning to you.
Morning, President Zibby. Morning, Omas. And it's a good Wednesday. Hope it's not raining on the island today.
No, it's not. Maybe, do we need some of those showers of blessings?
We can do this.
We sure do. The heat is 31 degrees already this morning.
Wow.
And also, let's reach out to Devoe Okorie. Good morning to you, Devoe.
Morning, world. Morning, Zibby, Omas. Government don't pay you.
I don't work for the government, do I? Devoe, where are you coming from?
And we are not people who are struggling financially.
So, Devoe, this morning. Devoe, let's reach out for a copy of the Guardian newspaper as we look at the headline. Federal government stopped 35,000 Naira wage increase after 1 month. Well, this is more like an expose from the Trade Union Congress. Thought they said it was going to be for 6 months. What happened, Devoe?
Well, you see, that's the million-dollar question now, because it's surprising that this government has been riddled with a lot of backlash from Nigerian citizens since its inception, primarily on 2 points. One, with the OT law, it is gone reform policy from the fuel subsidy removal to the FX harmonization. Obviously, Nigerians were thrown into heightened levels of hardship. Let's not even begin to break down the figures on poverty. As we always say, those who had less have nothing right now. And to ease that, the trade unions, that's NLC and the TUC, led the confrontation with government to see how they could improve the livelihoods of Nigerians. Likewise, agree on some form of what they refer to as palliatives. Those are temporary measures. And in a 10-point agenda, which they claim as of their presidential discussion, as Felix Ofiso on a Rise broadcast, that it hasn't even been signed. We all heard that federal government workers were to receive 35,000 subvention, okay, to last for 6 months, which was meant to start from September and end in February. Now, honestly, and then also remember, businesses about 1 million SMEs were supposed to receive 25,000 also as their support for both civil servants and business people. But here we are in January 2024, which is from September to January. That's about 4 months or 5 months into implementation. And the TUC is stating that they only received 1 month. And this is really shocking, because my point is, even if the federal government was not able to meet up with its promises, there should have been some form of communication at this point to be able to say, yes, we promised, but we've not been able to deliver. Please hang on. At least let it be that you're not taking the Nigerian people for granted. Now, Felix Osifo, that's the TUC president, did open up as to how the federal government has improved its internally generated revenue, because
all right, Devoe, it's in your connection. You'd have to reestablish connection with us. So let's go over to our next story.
All right. And this one was... okay, Devoe is back. Go ahead, Devoe. But you're muted.
In summary, Devoe.
All right, let's move on to the next headline. This one comes from The Nation. ASU decries planned creation of more universities, tasks government on funding the existing ones. This was in the news last week, and we spoke about this bill that passed second reading, and ASU is now responding. Lakunle?
Right. So two angles I'm going to look at this story from. One of those things that we talk about our trade union, professional bodies, and all the rest of them. It suggests to me that the idea of democracy has not sunk in well with a lot of us. Why do I say this? Okay, so typically one would expect that all our trade unions, professional bodies will have what we call lobby groups to lobby the lawmakers to make the policies that favor their profession or their union or whatever, or to provide advices on, or guidance on how to do a lot of this stuff, right? But what we have is all our trade unions sit back, someone in government has a brainwave, pronounces something, or the National Assembly starts to make a law, they wait till the law gains traction, then they start to sound like opposition. That's what we have witnessed all day today, all since 1999 to date. I think we should change from there. They should form powerful lobby groups and chase the government, preempt their thinking, prefer solutions and advice on how to make laws to favor whatever it is that they think is good for us. That will save us from all these kind of arguments. That's level one. Then the level two of it, I find myself for the first time in a long time agree with ASU on anything at all. Last week we were talking about Lagos State government said they want to start a new University of Medical Sciences, and the question was, the one you have today, what is the capacity that it has? What do they have that you can give them money to do? What don't they have that you can provide immediately? You have LASU, for example, I'm using Lagos State government now just to capture. You have LASU, they are sitting on about 250,000 hectares of land or thereabouts, if I'm not wrong, I think so, 250 hectares of land. You have not even occupied half of it. You have a faculty of medical sciences there that NUC says you cannot accommodate more than, I think, is it 250 people? Why don't you expand that to accommodate 500? It's easier to do. So let's go back to this story. So the federal government wants to establish 47 new universities. Where, for crying out loud, they want to establish these 47? Two things are going to happen. We're talking about environmental degradation, right? They're going to go into some forest and destroy the habitation to establish the university, right? That is deforestation. And we're talking about global warming. That's an extent of the impact of what we're going to do. Pray, which states in Nigeria, let's say, for example, they want to have one university in every state. Which state in Nigeria today does not have a federal university? Why do we want to create 47 new ones? Why can't you spend the money we want to spend on those 47? Why can't you distribute it in this 47 and say, look, University of Ibadan, I know your medical school, you count, UC says you cannot take more than, is it 500? I want to be able to take 1,000. What do you need to make 1,000 possible? Unilag, your law faculty, director of legal whatever says you cannot take more than 50. I want you to take 200. What do you need to be able to do that? By the time you spread this across all universities in Nigeria, there will be no need for us to establish new ones. The time you are going to establish new ones, and guess what? Most importantly of all of this, all our universities today, we say that they are understaffed in terms of teaching capability. So if you establish this 47, where are you going to find the resources to teach in those places? Are they going to drop from the sky? So the thinking sometimes of when you hear some of these things, it makes you want to be angry at the way we assume that the people who make this pronouncement or who think this thing through, whether they are pedestrian about their thinking or it's just that they just want to be saying it for the sake of saying it. I think that the money that would have been spent on this, they should just reinvest it in the existing ones.
Thank you so much, Lakunle. Let's reach over to Devoe as he will help us look at this next story from the Vanguard, where it states the customs partner after secretariat, that's relating to the African Continental Free Trade Agreement, stating that it's for better trade initiative. This is over 10 years since this came into force. Why are we yet to lash onto it to get the benefits, Devoe?
One of the major things of black government is you really don't develop where it matters. Okay, and the truth is, I say this because starting from elections, when it's time to choose leaders who will drive a better society, greater economic position, we don't discuss some of the real issues, power, economy, social infrastructure. We talk about sentiment, religion, and ethnicity. And this story is all about how the logic of working together will take you further than walking by yourself. This is wisdom that global players have understood. So most countries are not just self-sufficient because of themselves, but they are efficient and they're strong because they have created partners where they can even trade. Good economies, rich economies are rich simply because money is made available when it's required. I buy, you sell. I sell to you, you buy from me. That's how it works, okay? That is what we refer to as cash flow. Now, here we are with some of that's the potential statistics of the continent, meaning we're the largest population, okay? We're about 200 million and counting, right? Larger than any other person. You would expect that Nigeria should be the production warehouse for the rest of Africa. However, that's not the case. So what they have done is that the Africa Free Trade Agreement was a collective understanding by African countries to say we can empower ourselves first by trading amongst each other, meaning the policies required to open your borders, both for people and goods, the policies for harmonization of custom duties and rights of passage, etc., should be harmonized so that it can be easy. Now, it took a while for this to be agreed. It took a while for the largest economies, as Nigeria and South Africa, to sign on for reasons that we can't even, we don't have time to go down. But here, the African Free Trade Agreement Secretariat was partnering with the Nigerian Customs Service and saying that trade within Africa, especially West Africa, is poor, is weak. That can we partner to see how we can drive this? Okay. Now, you see, the problem there is this. I think it goes a little bit beyond just the customs. It's going to require full government attention, not just from the federal government, but from the state government as well, because the Nigerian border is not just Lagos, even though the major border is at Lagos, but you have the border running through Lagos, Ogun, Kwara, Kebbi, Nasarawa, all the way up to the north, and even around the border nations on the other side of Cameroon, etc. We as Africans need to be able to trade with each other. Goods must be able to come in. Unfortunately, I must say this, because of the infrastructure problems in Nigeria, our manufacturing and financial issues, our manufacturers have suffered. Thereby, other countries who have been able to produce goods at cheaper prices are readily available to come into the country. And that has created some kind of friction and confusion at the borders, whereby you see the issues that we have with Ghana. I myself, when I was trading at some points, my goods were destroyed and confiscated in Benin Republic. And what did they tell me? I did nothing wrong. I was not carrying contraband. I paid my rightful levies. But what did the Benin people tell me? You, my friend, you from Nigeria, when our people move things to your country, they confiscate them. So we will confiscate your own now after we become friends. That is the state of affairs between even neighbor countries. So you can understand why the Africa Free Trade Agreement has not really gone far. Now, I suffer that. Imagine all the other business people out there. We have to take necessary efforts, deliberate efforts to try and create those outlets, channels that will work for all of us to ensure that, because the more we trade, the bigger the economies will become. And by so doing, you create the necessary employment and grow your GDP. And we get out of this mess, this decade mess of being poor and just having poverty all over the place.
Well, I'm tempted to say Devoe, Okorie, that was a big loss to that you're trading, but you are going to get back to it someday along the line into the trading. But how important is visas? A continent that is yet to even solve visa issue within itself.
Right.
How can it even tap into this huge market that AfCFTA provides?
Very good question. Remember the free trade agreements, either by way of ECOWAS or SEDAC or whichever collective countries. It's free movement of goods and persons. Now, the customs obviously is dealing with goods, while immigration deals with persons. And even in West Africa, even though we're able to move freely, it hasn't been that easy. Now, as countries that are serious are making those moves, e.g. Rwanda. They've opened up their borders to the rest of Africa, and that they're with their visa on entry policy. Kenya also announced it, even though some people are pushing back that it's not as easy as it's said. But the truth is, Nigeria should consider this option as a means of driving our economy. Remember, when people come here from outside, they come with their funds. Two, even if you're trying to stave away migration of low-income people, but the truth is, as long as those who have those policies, like the immigration, make them work, ensure that they have all what they need to be able to move around. And as if others have set the example, I think we need to catch up as quickly as possible.
All right, so thank you very much, Devoe. Let's pick up a few messages we see building up already. Ajayi Oludidua's message is waiting. It's absolutely ridiculous for the National Assembly contemplating creating 47 new universities when the existing ones have not been properly funded. That's from Oludidua from Magodo GRA Sherry. And Anthony's message here tells us,
we understand how our leaders work. That initial payment was meant to doze attention. The remaining 5 months will never come. It's an executive strategy. The two ministers being hunted right now are the ones that have been shown to be really working in the government. I do not support the idea of moving government money into private accounts, but I think it is a witch hunt tool in this regard. You're listening to Freshly Pressed on Smooth 98.1. We've got more headlines, and of course, we'd love to read more of your messages. Stay with us. The conversation continues. Hi, Devoe.
Devoe is lost in traffic.
Kenny?
you can see, you can just come over.
Can you hear me? Can you hear me?
You can hear you.
Lakunle?
Okay, you are there. No wonder I wasn't hearing your voice clearly again.
Can you hear me now?
Left you
Very faint.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, I can hear you a little bit, yeah.
Okay, this is your next story on the, what do you call it, the Minister of Zibby. You sacked one of those people, the competition.
This is Johnny Drill, and you're listening to the Smooth Breakfast Show.
It's Freshly Pressed on Smooth 98.1. We have the analysts in, Lakunle and Devoe. We are looking at the news stories making the headlines. WhatsApp number to get your thoughts across, 0809 440 981. You can also tweet at Smooth 981. We're streaming live as well up on YouTube, Smooth 981. All right, so according to some statistics from the NBS released last week, about 54%, or there was a 54% drop in foreign investment in the manufacturing sector. And this brings us to the headline from The Nation. Trade, Industry and Investments Minister Doris Uzoka Anite has assured the manufacturing sector of the president's readiness in deepening the sector's development. Lakunle?
So as not to sound pessimistic, I think these visits are just cosmetic. All ministers are trying to outshine and outdo each other to prove to us that they are up to the task, which is fair. I would rather say that the minister, Ms. Doris Uzoka Anite, does not necessarily need to visit anybody for the manufacturing sector to know what they want or how they don't want. What are the basic things that makes the manufacturing concern a going one? Power, access to gas, good roads to transport their finished products, access to forex for importing of materials they need that are not local, the multiple taxations, the federal taxes, the state taxes, the local government taxes that they get to pay. What else is this that is new that we don't know? The reason manufacturing are dropped by 54%, like according to NBS, like you just mentioned, is because a lot of these things, they struggle with them. So the job of a minister for for industry is not to visit the manufacturing plants of any organization. It is to make policies and work in conjunction with the organizations of government or otherwise who will make all these things that we have mentioned accessible to these people. Okay, so we just had that an organization that makes baby products is closing shop in Nigeria. Why did they close? Will a visit have stopped them from closing? No, a visit will not. What would have stopped them from closing was the solution to the problems that they have preferred. They said power, access to materials, access to forex to bring in their products, harassments from law enforcement, harassments from custom, and all of those things are still there. So no matter the number of visits you make to these people, it's not solving this problem. The government is a continuum where there's no need to reinvent the wheel. There's nothing new that the president may want to do to improve this thing other than to improve on all these things that we have listed and more. So for me, I think that they should spend more time working with the GENCO for power, the LNG, for example, for gas in places where they need gas, Ministry of Works and whatever for good roads, work with Federal Inland Revenue Service and whatever. So sometimes a ministry does not necessarily have to be in front. It could be in the background, making the other ministries in front shine by saying, look, where I supervise, this is what we need. Let's get it done. What do you need from me to make it happen? You don't necessarily have to go and stand in front all the time. All this posturing will not help.
All right. Thank you so much, Lakunle. And let's hope the Minister Anita is listening. But I remember during the budget debates, I remember she was also in the limelight for that, getting some scolding from Senator Adams Oshomole, asking her to also stay back in our ministry to work, not go to Switzerland. But let's move on now. Devoe, help us pick up this paper. NNPC, that's NPA, asked maritime workers to suspend planned strike, and it's coming from the Punch newspaper. Why?
Well, the MD, that's Mohammed Koko, he's asking maritime workers to go with the agreement that they had because they had an issue over the non-compliance with the stevedoring regulations. Now, the truth is, there are literally plenty trade disputes in practically every sector in our economy, and the issue here is the ports themselves have. I don't know how to put it. There's so many processes involved, and there's this lack of systematic harmonization. I didn't have time to list all the agencies that are operating ports. And you wonder sometimes how are they able, if you've ever worked with a forwarding and clearing agent, it will shock you the amount of documentation that they have to come up with all manner of names to one agency or the other, taxes, levies, duties. That is now I think just like in the tax scenario whereby the president is looking at how they can harmonize taxes and then taxes within the country for ease of doing business, the same should be applied to the maritime industry for us to become that efficient and proud industry that it should be. It shouldn't boil down to all these little associations always coming and blocking the road down to tools and creating just chronic mayhem around the ports. And I do believe that these things are not rocket science. I think the operators and the regulators need to sit down together and then harmonize some of these policies. We have one of the best cabotage laws in the country. Have we taken time to implement it to fullness? So that's my take on this issue. There are many more. It's not always that it reaches the press, but it affects us because at the end of the day, for those who are importing and also for those who are exporting, they go through these frustrations. One, two, we don't get sufficient. We're not serviced sufficiently, especially when you're trying to just bring something into the country, or then take out, which is even worse, simply because of all the strife that's going on.
All right, thank you, Devoe. Can we look at some of the messages that we have coming through?
Amika's message from Ikeja. establishment of more universities are just the gate to steal money in the pretense of building and equipping schools. That's the maker's thoughts from Ikeja. Aisha sent in this one. It says, please let the people with the funds to do 47 universities partner with the existing universities to take them to the world standard so we can promote educational tourism. Please let them not destroy the federal and state universities like they did with the federal government colleges and secondary schools around unity schools, and they all benefited from.
All right. According to the federal government, about 48 million Nigerians, and this is from last year, are still openly defecating. Well, lawmakers are going to try to do something about this. From Premium Times, lawmakers in Nigeria move to criminalize open defecation.
I think that the headline is a bit misleading. Reading through the story, you see that it's actually Nsukka local government area where this is happening. So the council and the councillors have sat and said that they want to criminalize open defecation, which is fair. It is not something that should be happening in 2023. Every house should have a proper toilet with water and all that. But guess what? How many houses today, when it was approved to be built, and who supervised to be sure that those toilets were actually built into the houses? One, okay, so then we have built the houses, they have toilets. Do they have water in those houses that they can use to maintain healthy environments within the house? Then do we have public toilets in our public places, the motor parks, the markets, and who supervises the use of these things? Is there water in those places? How neat are those places? How sure am I that I won't get an infection or whatever if I go to use those kind of places, and so on and so forth. So, you know, there was a governorship candidate in Lagos, I think 3 election cycles ago, who made this open defecation one of these campaign items, that it was going to end open defecation in Lagos. And just before the show started, we were speaking to what it is like and where you would like to have this kind of things. So in public places, in government offices, places where people can easily walk into that will not create any environment. So in doing this, I would appeal to the people of Nsukka local government area of Nigeria and Nigeria at large. Ordinarily, before you leave your houses, make sure that you are not in any way pressed. And then if you are, please try and find an enclosed place to do your whatever you want to do. Doing these things on the road is bad. Governments cannot make a law without something, without providing something that will stop you from breaking that law. You cannot say overspeeding if you don't tell me that this is the speed limit, for example. So it's the same way, if there are no public toilets, how then do it's a call of nature. Sometimes you are not able to control it. So what then do I do at that point? If I don't know within the circle of where I am that, okay, the next 5 minutes or the next 100 meters, there's a public toilet I can use. So the local government should first provide these amenities, provide water, make water available. In this report, one of the traditional rulers even mentioned that a 4-liter jerrycan of water is sold at 100 naira. So imagine in a family of 5, if all the 5 of them have to use the bathroom in one day, that is 500 naira to just clean up after they are done. So those are the kind of things that we need to speak to be able to be addressed before you can then start to say that you are criminalizing. Besides, who is going to be paying for when you send the person to jail? Who is picking up the cost of keeping the person in jail, feeding, accommodation, housing, and all that? So we should not create bigger problems because we are trying to solve a smaller problem.
Well, they say you never know how polite a man or a woman is until he has the need to attend to nature, or probably has a running stomach, then you would know. But let's pick up messages as we close up now. Osagi's message: for once, let's lift the veil and see beyond the allegations. Is Better Edu really guilty, or she was deceived to making a deliberate mistake, or just a cheap witch hunt to a performing minister? Nigeria will ill. Osagi's message from Ujudu. Wondering how that crept into the headlines this morning, but thanks for sending the message in. Idima Puza's message from Surulere: the only thing that have gone wrong viral this new government is hardship on Nigerian citizens, as squeezed on all angles by the various unfriendly policies taken. What has God not given to Nigeria for it to be great? Yet, in the midst of the abundance, God's blessings, we are suffering. Why? Bad governance. Itima Puza's thoughts this morning.
And a message coming through. I can't see a name here, but it says, eBay from Uyo. As for the Minister of Industry, going by what is happening to Better Edu, is she planning to visit to be able to allocate funds for travels, etc.? I agree with the analysis that what will the visit achieve in comparison to her visiting her colleagues, fellow ministers, and bringing out solutions to mitigate the challenges that manufacturers are going through. Gilbert, Nedu, Judy, Ajayi, James, we see your messages. We're out of time. Thank you for sending them. Thank you for listening. And special thanks to our analysts as well, Lakunle and Devoe, for joining us this morning.
Thank you, President Zibby. Always a pleasure.
Do you stay with us? There's